Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today we need to talk about what is probably going to be the very last Radiant Pokemon we ever see, as well as some other interesting new cards, which aren't actually that new, but are actually pretty gosh darned important. So we've got Radiant Charjabug, and here's the deal. We know that Radiant Charjabug comes from VStar Universe. We know that VStar Universe is Sword and Shield 12A. We know that the next set coming out is going to be the first Scarlet and Violet set. So, yes, there is absolutely a chance. I would say a pretty small chance, but there is a chance that the next set, the Scarlet and Violet set, does actually have Radiant Pokemon in. I think it's extremely unlikely, and I don't think anyone should be expecting that, but I do have to acknowledge that yes, there is a chance that Scarlet and Violet, the base set, does actually have Radiant Pokemon. Generally speaking, when we go to a new block, a new generation, they get rid of all the gimmicks. There have been rare exceptions where they haven't, but especially these side gimmicks like Radiant Pokemon, I really would not be expecting these at all. We didn't see Prism Stars coming into the Sword and Shield era. I wouldn't expect to see Radiant Pokemon coming into the Scarlet and Violet era. Maybe. There is a chance. I just think it's very small. So, we've now got the full set list for this set. And this is the only Radiant Pokemon we've not looked at so far. Remember, in this set, there is an alternate art Charizard. And there is Eternatus, which is another new, mechanically unique Radiant Pokemon. But the only two new ones are Charjabug and Eternatus. And they kind of told us Charizard was going to be new, and boo, that wasn't true as an alternate art. But still, that's basically what we've got. So what that means is that this is the last Sword and Shield set. And we're not expecting Radiant Pokemon to carry on into the next set, because that's going to be Scarlet and Violet. And this is the last one to see from this set, which makes it the very last Radiant Pokemon we will ever see. So is it actually worth getting excited about? Well, the translation here comes from the lovely Antoine Boulet and the lovely me, because I did a bit of this as well, although it's up to you to determine if I'm actually lovely or not. Now, what we've got here is 90 HP, which is kind of embarrassingly low, but does open up the use of Level Ball, which is actually a little bit of an advantage, so that's kind of cool. And we've got a pretty terrible attack for a single energy, which does 30 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. It's not good. It's definitely not good. Now, I will say that yes, that will allow you to potentially finish off bench Pokemon and all of that. And I also need to mention that Manaphy's a thing. A Manaphy's seeing a bunch of play right now. A Manaphy will block this. So then you're only doing 30 to the active for one energy. It's just not a good attack, right? But we have a very interesting ability, Shock Block. Whenever any player attaches an energy card from their hand to one of their Pokemon V, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. And I've checked the wording here with my fantastic Japanese reading powers, and it is definitely a double-sided thing. Which is kind of interesting, because although you're locked into playing one Radiant Pokemon in total in your deck, there is a possibility that both you and your opponent both play Radiant Charjabug, and then when a player attaches an energy, they take 4 damage counters, which is kind of dumb. It's incredibly unlikely, but it is kind of interesting to me that that's a thing. So, it's double-sided, so one of the things we need to mention right at the beginning here, there are going to be plenty of decks that will not be touching this with a barge pole, because it affects you as well. So obviously, if you're playing the kind of deck that wants to attach a bunch of energy, or really cannot afford those extra energy attachments to damage you, then yeah, don't play this. Do not touch this with a barge pole. It's a very bad idea. But it's only when you attach energy to Pokemon V, which means that if you're playing a non-Pokemon V deck, this becomes a really fun option, because then your opponent has to take the damage when they attach the energy, but you don't. And that's kind of hilarious. We also need to bear in mind that it is only energy from your hand. So if we look at something like Archeops, for instance, which is going to see a lot of play in this upcoming format, you are searching your deck for 2 special energy and attaching them to one of your Pokemon. You are attaching from the deck, not your hand, so you will not take the damage. But if we compare that to something like Gardenia's Vigor, that's a supporter card that lets you draw 2 cards, and then if you drew any in this way, you attach 2 grass energy from your hand to one of your bench Pokemon, well then you are attaching from your hand, so you would take 2 damage counters for each energy attached using Gardenia's Vigor. And basically the wording here is absolutely crucial. If you want to know whether this works or not, what you need to do is look at the wording of the card and see if it says from your hand. And if it says from your hand, then you will take the extra damage with Charjabug, and if it doesn't, you won't. Job's a good un. Now, obviously, things like this were way better back when we had stuff like Welder seeing a ridiculous amount of play. In a Welder-heavy format, this would be amazing, because people were constantly using Welder to attach extra energy, and that was kind of amazing. That's not really the kind of format we're in at the moment, unfortunately. Now, the good news is, we do have Kyurem, and Kyurem's kind of hilarious, because Kyurem's got that attack that lets you attach as much energy as you like from your hand for a single energy, and because it says from your hand, every energy attachment made with Kyurem V will therefore attach the extra damage from this, which is kind of amazing, and I love it. But it's still going to be extra damage here and there. Sure, it's not going to catch stuff like Archeops, which is kind of annoying, but it's going to catch a lot, and it is energy card, not energy. So something like double turbo energy would just take 2 damage counters, not 4. But the deal here is really simple. If you are not going to be that hurt by this, but your opponent will, this is a great card. If you're not going to be that hurt by this, but your opponent might, this is a good card, but you may well want to choose other Radiant Pokemon above it. And obviously, if this is going to hurt you, don't touch it with a barge pole. It's really as simple as that. But in a non-V deck, where you need that little bit of extra damage, I really, really like this. And yes, I'm sorry, I've got to mention here, if you're playing this, do consider combining this with Old Cemetery. Old Cemetery, when you attach an energy from your hand to a non-psychic Pokemon, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. Now, this is all non-psychic Pokemon, including your non-Vs, if you go in that route. But come on, ladies and gentlemen. This is kind of amazing, isn't it? I don't know. I just love the idea that my opponent attaches an energy from their hand, and all of a sudden they take 4 damage counters. That sounds good to me, ladies and gentlemen. That sounds pretty gosh darn good to me. Scoring, I'm giving this 4 Wassies. I really like this. I do think the biggest issue here is that we've got stuff like Radiant Greninja, which is great, and Radiant Charizard, which sees a bunch of play in a bunch of decks as a phenomenal attacker, and Radiant Gardevoir that reduces damage done by attacks from Pokemon V. So the biggest issue here, honestly, is just the fact that we've got really good Radiant Pokemon that people may well be playing instead. Now, I did tell you there were some other new Pokemon we needed to have a little bit of a look at, and there are, but I also told you they're not really new, and that is also true, ladies and gentlemen. That is also true. We've got Leafeon VStar! And you may notice that this does not look like your regular Leafeon VStar. It is the same card. Exactly the same card. It's just now we've got lovely alternate artwork. And it's really up to you as to which one of these you prefer. The card as a whole really hasn't seen a huge amount of play. Free energy, 180. This Pokemon takes 30 less of attacks next turn. I do like the ability that just gives you gusting whenever you want it. I love the idea of having Leafeon VStar just sitting on your bench ready to gust whenever. That's kind of cool. We didn't really need an alternate art. but it is kind of lovely. Do remember, though, that we have had the special art rare be revealed for this Leafeon, and that really is just an absolute stunning, ridiculous, over-the-top card. So I think I know which one of these I prefer. And in very cool news, we do have alternate arts of Zeraora V, Zeraora V Max, and Zeraora VStar. All of those are coming through, and they all have alternate artwork. Here's Zeraora V compared to the regular. Here is the V Max compared to the regular, and I really like this new artwork of the V Max. I just think it looks amazing. And here is the V-Star compared to the regular. I don't have any strong feelings about the V and the V-Star, but I do think this V-Max is extremely cool. Now, it is also, of course, very much worth bearing in mind that we have had confirmation that Zeraora V-Max and Zeraora V-Star are both getting these lovely special art rares in the set. We've not seen Zeraora V yet. However, I don't think it's a massive stretch to suggest that if we're getting the V and the VMAX and the V-Star as alternate arts, and we're getting the VMAX and V-Star as special arts, that there is an absolutely very good chance that we are getting the V as a special art rare as well. No confirmation, but that does seem pretty standard. What is really interesting, of course, is a Zeraora V-Star, Zeraora VMAX, and Zeraora V were never actually released in any kind of set. Over in Japan, they were in that special deck. And then over here, they were in the battle box, which wasn't a deck, it was just the promos with a bunch of packs. The fact that we're getting these in a set is actually just extremely cool, because it makes these cards way more available, way more out there, and I, for one, am very happy indeed. Although it is worth bearing in mind Deoxys was released in the same way, we are not getting alternate arts of Deoxys. We are getting special art rares of Deoxys V-Star and Deoxys V-Max, but we are not getting alternate arts of the regulars, so you can get the Deoxys in the set, but you cannot get them as regular, you can only get them as special art rares. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Charjabug looks pretty cool. Zeraora is back, and that's a big deal. And Deoxys isn't, and that's a bit sad. But now it's over to you guys. Tell me what you think about these cards. Tell me how excited you are. Tell me if you're going to be playing Charjabug. Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk Pokemon and card games and Pokemon card games and all kinds of fun things. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel. You can get some bonus podcasts for answering all of your questions. You can join a Discord and chat with us and generally just have an awful lot of fun. Like the lovely Matt DS, who's been a supporter of ours for a while now and does seem to be a very lovely person. So thank you very much for the support and for being a thoroughly lovely person. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.